Hello everyone, it's Carol here at Oak House Journals. As always, a very big warm welcome from me. It's lovely having you with me, so thank you for joining me on my channel today. I hope this video is not going to confuse you because we're going to go back in time in a minute or two. So let me explain. You might recognise this. This is one of my embroidered pages that I did for my garden themed journal of stitchery, and I needed to create a sister page to this one, mimicking some of the features on this page but in a fresh embroidered page. And about this time last year I started doing that, and I recorded probably up to about halfway through the embroidery process. But then I got embroiled with Christmas, then New Year, and then in the early part of this year, 2023, Maggie and I went on a lovely holiday to Australia. Now, I faithfully promised myself that when I came back, I would pick up the half-finished sister page and complete it. But that didn't happen for some reason, and it was left languishing to one side until a couple of months ago when I thought, well, if I don't pick it up and finish it off, this garden themed journal of stitchery is not going to get finished this year. So the next part of this video is showing you the early process of the sister page and getting it up to the halfway stage, and then we jump forward in time again to now, and I will show you the completed page. What I've done is I've done a rough sketch encompassing the ideas that I know that I do want to have on this page. So I've always mentioned that I wanted to have the wall continued down here. So I've just sketched in the wall. This line here, the curved line, is going to represent the path, and down the side here, these are hollyhocks to pick up the hollyhocks on this squiggle here. Well, obviously that's an astilbe or something akin to that. This, I thought I would do some of these oxeye daisies, but I won't do them so tall as I've done here, and probably not as tall as I've done them there. I probably will do them lower down here. And again, there's going to be some vegetation creeping over the wall as I've done here and here. This is supposed to represent a tree. Now, whether I go with that or not, I don't know. I would like to do a bare tree there, like the ones we see in winter without any leaf. But this is a spring garden, and if I've got oxeye daisies and hollyhocks and astilbe, then the tree won't be a bare one. It will be in full bloom like this one back here. So I'm hesitating about that a little bit. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to use my light box, and I've got it off to one side here. I'm going to use that, and I'm going to trace this image onto here, with the exception of the squiggles that represent the tree, and make a start embroidering. And then as I go, I'm sure that ideas will come to me about how to do the background piece on here. If you recall, I had ideas of doing our local church. I've decided that I will save that for another day because it's a little bit too big in terms of the scale for on here. The other option that I thought I might do is just rolling hills. I also thought that I could do a continuation of the garden, but I still need to have something further back in the background here. So I'm thinking that that idea will materialize or evolve as I go along. So I'm just going to start with this initially and take it forward from there. As you can see, I've got my light box set up. It's all ready to switch on. I've got this embroidery next door to the rough sketch that I did, just so that I can line up where the wall is when I place this over the top, like so. Now, I'm not sure if you can see it, but I can just very vaguely see my sketch underneath. So I'm just going to turn my light box on, and I can see a lot better, and looking at the screen I can tell you're seeing more or less what I'm seeing. So I'm just going to move that over a little bit and just adjust where I want the image on my fabric, and I'm thinking something like that. It gives me a little bit, maybe a little bit further over. Let's do that, pull it over a little bit like that. It gives me a little bit of an edge here, which I'll need when I come to bind this into my journal at the end of the day. And that wall is more or less lining up. Maybe I need to bring it down a little bit like that. So yeah, that's how I want my wall to be. So now all I'm going to do is use my Frixion marker pen. I'm always talking about these. These are Frixion Pilot Frixion marker pens. They're heat erasable, and my favourite one is a 0.5 nib. So I'm just going to now make a start. I'm just going to turn that sideways because that's easier for me to sketch. And I'm hoping you can see I'm just going to sketch where I wanted those bricks, my wall, to be. And because this is heat erasable, I can just iron over the top of this at any stage after I've done the embroidery, if I've got some lines showing, or even now if I decide I don't like how I've traced things, and start all over again. So I'm just going to carry on just roughly sketching where I want my bricks in the wall to be, and then when that's done I'll make a start on embroidering this. So I'm just very roughly sketching. I could be more precise, but I know that I'm going to be going over these bricks in a moment or two to get the shapes that I want. And then again, when I'm embroidering, I won't be following exactly the lines. There we go. So I think that's about all I want to do at the moment for my wall. And I'm just going to go in now and do just a few rough lines up here where I think my hollyhocks are going to go, and maybe another one up there. So that's roughly where I had those placed, and I don't really need to go in with anything more than that at the moment, other than to just maybe just add a few of the flower heads where I think they're going to be. And as you'll see when I come to sew these, I will move these around. They become smaller if I don't get my stitches quite right, and I just work from there really. They've actually worked out to be a bit bigger than I wanted, or a bit taller in comparison. Oh, I've just switched my light off, in comparison to these, but I'm not too bothered. I've actually got these coming down closer to the wall, so I probably will do that as well and have them down here like that. Let's turn that light back on. I hope that's not dazzling. There we go. And I've got my Stilbees here, haven't I? So I was thinking I might have those kind of like that. My path I do want to get in, so I know that that's going to be placed something like that. And then, as I said before, I think I will have some stems of these oxide daisy style blooms happening here. So I'm just going to sort of sketch some of those in. Didn't want them as tall as I've got them on this one, so I think I'll probably end up leaving it at that. Still room for me to get some leaf in here, and still room, as you can see here, for me to put in the tree if I decide to go with that. So that's all I'm going to do at the moment, everybody. I'm not going to do any more now on the rest of the design, as I said, because I don't know what it's going to be, but I am going to go in now and do a little bit of shading and pick out my threads for the wall and just happily start stitching that. Now here I've gone with a pale, fairly pale grey, almost a steely grey, and I'm going to pick up the same colour again. And then for my shading I went in with a brown pencil in the actual wall itself. So again, I'll be copying that, and the same for the path. That was a mixture of browns, and I will be shading that in. And similarly down here, where I've got the black and brown forming part of the access way, then I'll probably do that along the bottom here at some stage. Okay, so I'm just going to go away now, grab my threads and start doing my split back stitch and straight stitches to mimic the wall that I've done here. So let me very quickly just run through what I've done. I've stitched all my wall here and I've done some vegetation trailing over the top of the wall. I've done my hollyhocks here to pick up the hollyhocks on this one. I've done my triangles here and my leaves. So there's my lupins there, same sort of leaves down here. I've started some of these oxeye daisies in this area around here. My path and all my shading is done with the watercolour pencils, and I've started doing oodles and oodles of these little tiny bullion knots here with a single strand of thread and then some of the little stems. So I will build up on that so that I can get this effect here. I've gone with a rough sketch of a border up here because, as I mentioned previously, I want to try and tie these two in together. So I always plan to have a tree here. It'll be something akin to this sort of thing, but along here I wanted to pick up this little flower border and path there. So I've stopped at this point so that I can show you what I'm planning next. And I've got here a tiny little image of a greenhouse, and I'm thinking that I will have that there with this foliage going over this side of it. So if I put the scissors there, so that it's actually going over the top of the greenhouse, and then when you come out of the greenhouse you're walking along this path and you'll be picking up some of the little plants along there. And then for up here, then I think I will go in with a pale blue wash of colour so that it picks up the sky that I've got going on up here, and it's the palest of blue that I've done here. And I think I probably will go over this so that we can have a bit more depth of colour. So that's what I'm thinking to finish off this little one. As you can see, I've still got quite a bit of stitching to do. So I'm going to once again disappear off. I've got my piece of tracing paper here to trace out that little greenhouse, and then I will be using my light box to get it in place here, and then I will carry on with the stitching and be back with another update. This is what the finished page looks like now that it's all done and dusted. As you can see, I've got my little greenhouse tucked away in the corner there, and although I didn't have a naked tree here or a deciduous tree here, I've actually managed to get a few twigs in the background there. And if I bring in the opposite page, or the page that will go opposite in my journal, you can see how they sit together if I move that across slightly. So I'm pleased that I went with this evergreen bush on this side to mimic this one. As you can see, I've gone with some rolling hills and a hedge in the background there, and I've still kept some of the same features. So I've got my bullion knot lavender there to mimic what I've done here, and I've got my vegetation obviously growing over the wall. I've got my hollyhocks here and my oxeye daisies here. So I think it ties in quite nicely and looks like it is all part of the same scene. As for the rough edges that I've got here, these were old vintage handkerchiefs that I used throughout my journal of stitchery. So the rough edges that I've got here won't be seen. The idea is when these are stitched onto my fabric pages, I will have stitching down the side here or between these two, which will stitch my signatures together in my journal, and then I'm going to put a portion of lace down there to hide these rough edges and also to hide my stitching. So that's my plan there. So if you're interested in seeing that, please pop by to my channel again, because I will be showing that fairly shortly now that my journal is done and dusted. And I'll also show a flip through of all the embroidery pages that I've done to create this garden themed journal of stitchery. Some you've seen me create, there are a couple in there that you won't have seen, and I hope they'll be a nice surprise when you see those. So until the next video, everybody, take care, enjoy the run up to the festive season, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye bye now.